1, 2, 3. Shit!
And welcome to 2D Talk. I'm Jayse, and this is my spoiler review of Skyscraper, starring Dwayne Johnson, Neve Campbell, Pablo Schreiber, Chin Han, and Roland Moller. So The Rock has been an extremely busy man of late. This is his third movie in 8 months, and while I'm not getting Dwayne fatigue, I do feel the movies he is making are coming out with less and less degrees of quality. Yes, there are problems with this movie that I find hard to defend, but there are some good points to the film as well, and I'm going to take you through that now. Set in Hong Kong, the story follows Johnson's Will Sawyer, an ex-FBI hostage response team leader who, after a mission goes wrong, loses his leg from the knee down. He then segues into becoming a risk and security specialist and is hired by Zhao Longji, played by Chin, to carry out a full analysis of his towering structure called the Pearl, the tallest building ever constructed. Something inevitably goes wrong and the 96th floor is ablaze. Will must find his way back into the building to save his family that are above the fire line, all while on the run from the authorities who believe he is the mastermind behind the attack. Okay, so the cast. There are only really 2 standouts in this film, the obvious being The Rock and Neve Campbell. I'm going to start with ladies first in this case. Campbell's return to the silver screen as Will's wife, Sarah Sawyer, is a welcomed addition. She was the star of one of my favourite series of horror movies, the Scream franchise, and she's been my Scream queen ever since. She was believable and as a character very capable. Also, she had a couple of great action sequences, which for a movie like this that focuses on the male protagonist, it is a nice change to the makeup of the genre. Now on to Dwayne Johnson. The movie may have had its problems, but from an acting standpoint in regard to Johnson, he was really good. He showed off more acting chops here, and over the last 3 movies that I've seen of his, I've seen an evolution in his skills. He was able to get across tension, emotion, and above all a sense of vulnerability, something that a majority of his roles before this have not had. The idea to make Will an amputee also helped to sell the genuine danger he was in at times, and for the most part I would say that I was always aware of his missing limb. I say for the most part because for brief moments it was as if the disability wasn't there, but only briefly. Now the rest of the cast are an assortment of obvious villains and filler characters that are either wasted or disregarded. Take for instance Pablo Schreiber's Ben, no last name required. The minute he came onto the screen it was obvious that he was going to betray Will, but the reasoning behind his treachery is weak at best and overwhelmingly petty. Basically, during the incident that left Will disabled, Ben was there and suffered scarring on his neck and ear. He was honorably discharged from service and had to seek work elsewhere. From his point of view, Sawyer made the mistake in the mission call and ended up with a wife and kids and he didn't. So he spent the last 10 years pretending to be his friend only to double cross him now. I was like, dude, that's a ridiculous plan. How can you just be around a guy you hate so much for so long only I don't know. When I heard the explanation, I was just like, you child, right? It was just such a douche move. The main villain of the story is Moller's chorus Botha, and while intimidating and his reason for attacking the building makes more sense than Ben's MO, it still felt really lazy, very lazy and tacked on. Moving on to visuals and the Pearl and a bit of absenteeism. The Pearl as a fictional building was amazing, so grand, so awe-inspiring, and it was well thought out and represented effects-wise, from the internal gardens to the stunning views and the high-tech aspects. Now apparently there was a shopping mall and commercial businesses at the lower levels of the building, but they never went into that element, they only briefly mentioned it. But I would have liked to have seen that part of the building in motion, with the Sawyer family interacting with it to bring context and life to the tower. There is a scene in the trailer of the family enjoying the gardens, but that was for whatever reason cut out. From the 96th floor upwards, it was all residential floors, completely empty until Will completes his inspection. Now all of these elements that I've mentioned left the premises feeling stale and absent of stakes. Fleshing out the actual structure would have made it more of its own character, which would have been a nice twist. And another thing, the reveal of the actual pearl at the top of the building, like what it is and what it does, was really underwhelming. Long G called it the 8th wonder of the world, to which I thought, nope, no it isn't, no, it's not that. It's a high-tech House of Horrors mirror room, mate. That's basically what it was. It wasn't, I wouldn't pay money. Even if it was doing it for free, I'd be like, I'm not gonna do that. I just thought that was really, really underwhelming. Okay, so let's talk about the script and plot problems. One in particular. So first, the dialogue was simple and serviceable, but one glaring problem I had is why were the Hong Kong police after Sawyer? Why did they think he was the terrorist? I know the villain's master plan was to use the tablet he had been given to access the off-site facility, thereby implicating him. But because he had the tablet in his pocket rather than his bag when it was stolen, the plan was delayed and Sawyer was not incriminated. So why were the police regarding him a suspect before the bad guys had even actually got to the facility to frame him? And if they thought it was because they found Ben shot dead in his own apartment, that's ridiculous too. Because he could have been shot by, say, one of the machine gun wielding maniacs shooting at the police from Ben's apartment window. It just made no sense to me. But if you guys actually figured it out or it made sense to you, let me know in the comments below, because myself, my friends, you know, we were like, why are they after him? It just made no sense at all. Speaking of Ben's death, that was one of the best action scenes in the movie, his fight with Will. It was visceral and brutal, so well shot and fast paced. Again, Johnson showed a vulnerability that his other roles have never shown, and that is getting his ass handed to him. Kinda like how Thanos handed the Hulk his ass in Infinity War. It was surprising and it changed up the game. What I would have liked to have seen though was a showdown between Will and Botha, rather than Will just 300 kicking him off the building. It was really anticlimactic, unfortunately. So wow, you know, it wasn't until I started writing my notes that I realized how much about this movie I was not a fan of. Yeah, the action was good, but there was nowhere near enough of it. There was a feeling of genuine worry about the lead character, and the core cast were believable and solid. And the joint venture between the US and China in this movie, along with the level of Asian representation, was a boon to the film. But the end product is paper thin. That's the term I would use for this movie. Paper thin. If it wasn't for Johnson and Campbell, I would have thought this was a complete waste of time, to be honest. Funniest and weirdest thing that happened to me when I went to see the film. I got my snacks and I went into the screen, only to find two people sitting in our seats. And I was like, you know, sorry, this is our seat. And she's like, no, this is our one. And we both compared our e-tickets, and both of them said exactly the same thing, except the movie that was showing in the screen. So we went out to find out what was going on, and it turns out that the theatre was so empty earlier in the day for Skyscraper. This is a Saturday afternoon. It was so empty that the heads of the theatre chain had cancelled the showings in larger screens. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? But we were compensated, and we only had to wait about 20 minutes for the next screening, which was in a much smaller auditorium, and also that wasn't even full. There was like 40, 50 people in it. That's it, just max. It was just not, there wasn't a lot of people there on a Saturday night. It was really strange. This movie cost $125 million to make, and judging by its box office, it's gonna struggle to make good on that. However, the second biggest movie market is China, and they could flock to the cinema to see this movie in droves. Take note that both Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham both have movies being released that feature the Middle Kingdom heavily. Why? Well, they have their Hobbs and Shaw Fast and the Furious spin-off movie coming out next year, and both want to start making their mark in a bid to make big over there as Vin Diesel has. Say what you will about Skyscraper, but maybe the movie actually isn't catered for the West at all, and that would be an ingenious plan. Financially dubious, but ingenious. Let's see if the Meg has the same kind of vibe. I'm giving Skyscraper a less than lofty 2 John McClanes out of 5. Are you getting Dwayne Johnson fatigue? What do you think of the movie? If you haven't seen it, are you planning to? Or are you going to give it a miss? Please comment below and let me know. Please like, share, and of course, subscribe. Don't forget to catch us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. You guys take care of yourself. See you later. Bye-bye.